This is a Venom mask from Marvel's Spider-Man 2 video game for PC and PlayStation 5. The helmet was 3D printed using ABS filament and finished using acetone vapor smoothing. No sanding was necessary in the creation of this mask, and I'm going to show you how I made it. Let's go. What's up you guys, my name is Mark and welcome to my channel. I downloaded these files from the Do3D website and will have a link in the description below. Do3D often does special offers where they make random 3D files free for a limited time. It just so happened that these files were picked to be free on their website for a 24-hour period, and that's when I snatched them up. I highly recommend following Do3D on social media if you aren't already, because I think they have the best quality files and you can get a lot of them for free from promotional offers. I printed this helmet at 100% of the original file size. I typically like to scale down my files a bit because of my small head, but this design has hooks on the inside of the jaw where rubber bands can be attached to simulate the opening and closing of the mouth. I wanted to ensure the mask wasn't going to be too tight and I had enough room to move the mouth open and shut. I printed all the files in ABS material on my Ender 3S1 besides the main portion of the helmet, which I printed on my Ender 5 Plus. I don't have an enclosure on any of my printers, which can make printing in ABS a bit more challenging. ABS is very sensitive to temperature and airflow changes can easily cause warping and deformation of your print. It actually took me about 3 tries in different orientations before I got the main portion of the helmet to print without failing. As you can see, there's some pretty bad warping and layer skipping in the middle of the print, but I'll fix that in a bit using a soldering iron. Since my Ender 3 has a direct drive extruder and the other pieces of the helmet were smaller, they printed a lot easier. ABS does release hazardous fumes such as styrene when melted, so if you're not using an enclosure, please make sure your printer is in a well-ventilated area separate from your regular living space. Please do your due diligence before working with ABS to educate yourself on the potentially harmful and hazardous chemicals that are released during the printing process. After the part is removed from the print bed, I noticed a few more areas where the layers did not adhere. Also, since I printed this helmet upside down, quite a few layer lines and imperfections can be seen on the top of the helmet. However, as stated earlier, all of these issues can be improved using a soldering iron. I have all the pieces of the mask laid out here after printing. I used an Acetone knife to remove any remaining support material and stringing. Even on my Ender 3, areas with rough surface finish and notable layer lines are almost unavoidable when printing ABS without an enclosure. After taking off large imperfections with an Acetone knife, I use a soldering iron to even out a few of the rough spots. The soldering iron and spare ABS filament are used to connect the portions of the main helmet that didn't quite adhere during printing. The repairs don't have to look perfect because the acetone smoothing will remove a lot of the unevenness. I printed the jaw in 2 separate pieces on my Ender 3 because I was getting some failures trying to print it all as one piece and knew I could just solder it together afterwards. After the jaw is put together, I do a quick fitment check by assembling it to the main helmet. The jaw has 2 nubs on either side that pressure fit into place, making assembly very easy. Before I perform acetone smoothing, I attach the magnets to the back of the mask, teeth, and main portion of the helmet. Magnets are attached before the parts go into the vapor bath because when smoothing, slight deformations can cause the magnet holes to shrink, making them difficult to install afterwards. A dab of super glue is applied to the recessed holes and 8x2mm magnets are pressed into place with the help of a needle nose pliers. The upper mouth and teeth use a few slightly smaller 6x2mm magnets as the gums taper to a point towards the side of the head. After installed, the magnet connections are tested, and once verified, we can move on to smoothing the printed pieces. I use a 32-quart storage container lined with paper towels as my vapor chamber. If you're interested in seeing how to make one for yourself, you can click the link in the corner of the screen. I spray the sides and bottom of the container with pure acetone and use a tin baking tray as my platform for my parts to sit on. The larger the part, the longer it needs to stay in the chamber. Once I start to see the part get glossy and covered in what looks like condensation, I take it out and let it air dry for a full 24 hours before handling. I don't show it in this video, but each of the pieces that make up the Venom mask were bathed in the acetone chamber 2 to 3 times. I do this because each time the parts are bathed, it further reduces the layer lines and imperfections. I make sure to wait a full 24 hours before putting the parts back into the bath, otherwise I risk the chance of leaving them in for too long and permanently warping them. After all the parts are bathed to my liking, you can see just how glossy and smooth they are. It's so satisfying to know that this finish was achieved without the use of any sandpaper. I quickly connect all the pieces together to verify the alignment, and I love the look. Part of me just wants to leave the mask as it is because the black looks so sleek, but I am going to move forward with painting the teeth and the eyes. The biggest downside to all of this is that acetone is a strong solvent that dissolves the outer layer of the ABS, making it brittle and prone to cracking. To help reduce potential cracking, I spray the front and back side of every piece with a few layers of clear lacquer. I found that this helps seal the parts and reduce cracking and shrinking over time. After the lacquer is dry, I spray both sets of teeth and both eyes with extra gloss white from Rust-Oleum. I took the liberty of painting one of the gums off camera to show what the finished product should look like. I created the dark red color by combining gloss black and red acrylic paint. This is where you can get creative and come up with a unique color that matches the aesthetics you're looking for. I found it extremely challenging to use a paintbrush to get between the teeth, so I improvised and ended up using a toothpick, which actually worked really well. I went slow and kept a damp paper towel nearby in case I got red on the teeth. I then used a small paintbrush to finish coloring the rest of the gums. I had to really dab the red on thick to cover the white paint below, which actually turned out okay because it gave the gums a sort of lumpy appearance. I also used the dark red to color the outer and inner sides of the mouth on the main portion of the helmet. I wasn't a super big fan of the mesh eyes that I had, so I got some resin eyes printed using services provided by, you guessed it, frickin' PCBWay. These eyes are made out of translucent resin and were only $12 a piece. I pretty much exclusively use PCBWay now for lenses and visors because of how fantastic and cheap they are. I'll have a link to their website in the description below. Here are the two different eyes side by side, and although I can't see through the resin ones, I think they look so much better. I'm also going to spray the inside of the eyes white using an airbrush to give them more of a frosted appearance. Gallery was nice enough to provide me with an airbrush for this project, which I'll use to color the eyes and apply a layer of clear gloss to the teeth. I actually have an airbrush already, but it's a really cheap one I got off of Amazon and it doesn't work very well. I actually try to avoid using it because of how poorly it performs and how frustrating it can be. The airbrush Gallery sent me is the GH8039, which is a middle-of-the-line model and super affordable at only $40. I'm going to start by spraying UV LS clear gloss for acrylic paint on both teeth. I dilute the paint to 50% with water until it has a milky consistency. Using a 0.5mm nozzle at around 40 psi, the clear gloss goes on beautifully. I don't see any splattering or large splotches that I always got with my old airbrush. I spray the back of the eyes with a transparent white using the same settings on my airbrush. If you're interested in getting one of these airbrushes, I'll have a link in the description below. Unfortunately, the white paint on the teeth started to bubble and warp after applying my final layer of clear coat. I'm not exactly sure what caused this, but it was probably from applying the clear coat too thick too quickly or the temperature of the environment I was spraying in. Either way, it sucked and I initially was really frustrated. In order to fix this, I'd have to strip all the paint and redo everything. However, after thinking about it, I decided not to do that and mixed up some mustard and gloss white acrylic paint and applied a very thin brushed layer to the top of the teeth. The light yellow color highlights the ridges in the cracked paint and gives the effect of yellowing teeth. Even though this wasn't the initial way I was going to go, it definitely gives the teeth a unique look. This once again just goes to show that not everything you do is going to work out perfectly the first time. Having the ability to pivot and incorporate new creative details can help your pieces stand out. The nice thing about the eyes is that they're interchangeable. I'm able to keep the frosted eyes in when the helmet is on display and swap to the mesh eyes when I wear the mask. I use contact cement to attach the bottom teeth to the lower jaw. I wrap some rubber bands around the tabs in the upper and lower jaw and make sure the mouth opens and shuts. Here's a quick video of me putting on and wearing the mask. I have a black neck gaiter on underneath and have the frosted eyes installed because they look so much better than the mesh ones. And with that, guys, the build is complete and here is the final result. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more content. I'll see you next time and stay classy.